All right, hello and welcome to Political Voice. I'm Moses Humphrey. Now, we begin today's show with a trip to Europe where EU leaders are set to have a video conference to discuss the raging conflict between Israel and Hamas, which has left more than 4,000 dead in the past 10 days. Well, European Council President Charles Michel said ahead of the meeting that the summit will focus on the next steps the bloc can take to avoid a regional escalation and security consequences. The talks would also be focus on humanitarian assistance for civilians and a possible large-scale migration within the region amid Israel's evacuation order for northern Gaza and its looming offensive. Well, outside Europe, President Joe Biden of the United States will make an extraordinary wartime visit to Israel this week as he seeks to demonstrate strong support for the country as it works to eliminate Hamas, while also pressing for ways to ease humanitarian suffering in Gaza. The dwelling objectives spelled out by his top diplomat Monday evening brings with them significant risks for the president as he works to prevent the crisis in the Middle East from widening. Plus, hundreds of thousands of vulnerable people fleeing the Sudan conflict are in need of humanitarian assistance at South Sudan's borders. The UN's acting humanitarian coordinator in the country, Maria Helene Verni, said since the outbreak of the conflict in Sudan on the 5th of April, thousands of people fleeing the fighting are arriving in South Sudan daily. Now, so far, no fewer than 310,000 new arrivals have entered South Sudan from Sudan as of 13th October, including South Sudanese returnees, refugees, and third country nationals. Oh, well, now to the day's business. Imo State Director of the Department of State of Security Services, DSS, Wilcox Idaminabo, has said the spate of insecurity in the state was criminality wrapped around Biafra ideology. Now, this is even as he called on traditional rulers, clergymen, and Igbo leaders to speak up against what he described as evil in the southeast states. Idaminabo made the disclosure during a one-day stakeholders roundtable organized by Center for Transparency Advocacy, CTA, on the November 11 governorship election in Imo State. According to him, the destruction and killings were simply criminality and not Biafra agitations. Well, Idaminabo queried why elections in the zone, threats of no elections arise, saying it fuels allegations that it is sponsored by political parties. Well, immediate past resident electoral commissioner for Enugu State, Chief Emeka Ononamado, said Imo State had the worst election history since 2011 supplementary election, adding that it was the state with the most election cases in court. Ononamado disclosed that the impact of Imo State's gubernatorial election will reverberate across the state, the country, and the world, saying some people may be called out over their roles after the election. The executive director of Center for Transparency Advocacy, Faith Nwadishi, said the stakeholders were brought together to ascertain the level of readiness for the gubernatorial election. Oh, well, I do have a guest with me in the studio. We're going to talk about this. With me in the studio, I have Akin Fatunke, who is a chartered accountant and also a communications strategist. Good to have you with us.
Always good to be with you, the Muse Moses. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for obliging us this time, as always. Now, with this revelation now, coming from the DSS, does this change the perception about the crisis in the Southeast?
No, it does not. It accentuates it. It tells us, like a mirror put in front of us, to let us know exactly what we should be expecting. I am not in the studios to smile and tell you that I see foreboding. What Shakespeare in Macbeth said, this soliciting solitude cannot be ill, cannot be good, but it's going to be more of ill than good. We have the imprimatur, we have the handwriting on the wall. Lately, from what you read, what should the Nigerian state be doing with what Mr. Wilcox Idumonabo has said? Is what Mr. Wilcox Idumonabo saying different from what you have in the heap of files upon files in the DSS office? What is the National Security Advisor doing in respect to what we know are clear danger signals from the east? Okay, if we say that we like the ostrich, we want to, in a manner of speaking, bury our heads in the sand when we see clear danger. What are we doing since September 29, when a more powerful made that profound statement, which I think speaks the mind of, you said criminality. They see it has been freedom fighting. And to say that the people of the Southeast, from Imo State inclusive, do not believe that the Nigerian government and the Nigerian people consider them as part of Nigeria. And so what they really want is to break out in,
but that's the Biafra agitation.
In the Biafra agitation. There's going to be, in my view, a very thin, very broad line between the two. And like Wilcox said, you want to hide under IPOB agitation to now begin to wreak criminality. And for the life of me, I know we have youths who are listening, and we have youths who are in Imo State. We have youths that are in Nigeria, and when they begin to see decapitated bodies littering the bush, as if we were still fighting the Nigerian Biafran war, what exactly are you expecting? A couple of yes and no's. Is the IPOB a proscribed organization? Yes. Is the IPOB the 10th deadliest terrorist group as ranked by Global Terrorism Index? Yes. Is IPOB now factionalized? Who are we really looking at? Are we looking at Nnamdi Kanu? Are we looking at Simon Ekman in Finland? Yes. Do we have a clear line of who we should really be talking to from that enclave? Yes. Is it also true that the Nigerian state, for one reason or the other that is not very clear to me, is breaking the laws in releasing Nnamdi Kanu after the court have asked him to be released? Yes.
You mean in holding him back? You mean?
Yes. Is he being held back for some reasons? I don't know. Maybe yes. And if he's being held back for some reasons, are we being told in clear terms? It says that when you want to come to equity, you come with some measure of fairness. Has Nnamdi Kanu been a very good boy to the rest of Nigeria? Not exactly. Do they, like the ANC in South Africa, the large majority, not all, of people from the Southeast see him as their freedom fighter? I think so. Slightly so, slightly so. I know the elites will say, no, they don't agree and stuff like that, but situations where he commands and says people should sit at home and people should don't sit at home. And Imam Powerful made that profound statement on September 29 that nobody should participate in the 63rd anniversary of Nigeria's independence. So we have a mismatch now. For all my yeses and for all the A's I have said, what is the Nigerian state doing? I honestly don't know. Maybe they are keeping some things to their mind, but I see a silver lining. I see situations where the whole of agitation, some people believing they are marginalized, which I think somehow is true, but they are not alone. Quite a number of other areas are marginalized. I also see that have we been genuinely fair and equitable? It doesn't look like that to me. Can we do better? Yes. Is the whole that has now exacerbated, it's went beyond now, exacerbated something to do about the politics of Nigeria as to who gets what, who becomes president, and who takes the second fiddle? Clearly, yes. And at the end of the day, if you're not going to get it through the normal means that we call democracy, some people say it's not democracy. Fella said we are all
Demonstration of grace.
yes, and that we are demonstrating praise. Then we need to sit again, look at things a bit more critically. I think we have a date with history, and I'll tell you that date. That date is December 15 of 2023. On that day, a month before that day, the big elephant in the room as regards our elections, of where we are going to, or where we should be approaching, is going to be pronounced
the presidential
by
now.
Yes.
The presidential. Okay.
The presidential election is going to be pronounced by the Supreme Court. And
Now, before
and
we
I
go,
see disagreements and escalating, but the December 15 date, I'm sorry, the December 15 date is also the date that is the Supreme Court is going to make a pronouncement on Nnamdi Kanu to be released or not to be released.
now
I foresee a situation where, I pray the situation will be to release him, to go to his people, and then let's start
negotiations from there.
Negotiations
All right.
from
There've been insinuations that the chaos in the southeast is politically motivated. Now, it's interesting that you also touched on the release of Nnamdi Kanu, because there are speculations in some quarters that Nnamdi Kanu is being held back because some political powers feel if he is released before the elections in the south, in Imo State, there will be more chaos. So he's been held back until after that election. Now let's look at the political undertone in what is going on in the southeast. We mentioned the fact that during elections, there are calls for the people not to come out to vote. And one would wonder, if you're trying to enforce your presence in the democratic space, wouldn't you encourage people to vote for a candidate that you know can represent you at the center, as against insisting that people do not vote? How does that help your campaign for secession?
Ceteris paribus, all things being equal, as they say. If you have a perception that the best of your best, even after doing all the best of your best, will not make you win the prize, then there is also agitation. There's also a field. It's supposed to be the turn of the Southeast. I think it should have been the turn of the Southeast, but the powers that be are giving them out. In this last election, it will have been the turn of, and I'm going to mention names, Peter Obi would have emerged as the president of Nigeria if Atiku
All right,
had been gentlemanly. But Atiku refused to be gentlemanly. Before that time, uh, things also were not working in that direction. So if you had this at the back of your mind, you now then look at it and say, look, I don't think I trust in the process. I don't even think the process is going to be transparent enough to be able to do what I need to do. And so, but there was that belief, like you are trying to make it out here now. That, yes, so let's go for elections.
All right.
And they actually went for elections.
Now,
and the result of the
let me
elections,
get your thoughts on this.
Know that it, at least from that part of
let me get your thoughts
Nigeria
on this.
was,
Excuse me, please. Let me get your thoughts on this. Now, we do know that if the government of the day has an interest in an individual, nobody can prevent the government from laying hands on that individual. We saw it in the case of Nnamdi Kanu, how he was even arrested from outside the shores of Nigeria and brought back in. We saw it in the case of Sunday Igboho, Yoruba Nation agitator, how he was arrested in Benin Republic.
And eventually released a few days ago.
And eventually released.
Yep.
The reason some people are saying there is a political influence in what is going on in the unrest in the Southeast is because the government doesn't seem to be doing anything to bring back Simon Ekpa. You did say that we know whom to talk to. Is Simon Ekpa one person that we should talk to in this regard? If he is, why hasn't the government done anything to bring him back to answer for the unrest that his words has created?
Hey, again, what is the difference between 6 and half a dozen? We need to be careful. And I don't think the government or a same government will want to pick on so many targets at the same time. I am aware that bringing Nnamdi Kanu is extrajudicial. And again, is giving the government some bit of a bloody nose, whether in the UK and where he was arrested. To now,
but that did not stop the government from arresting Sunday Igboho as well.
No. The news. You are so right. Government is an entity that is very difficult to tame. To see governments that are tamed, and they can be tamed. Now, in the specific reference to Simon Ekpa, it's not entirely true that the government has not made moves. The government actually have made moves under the natural convention of international law, and Finland had been approached. No, you should not be doing this. But the laws in Finland is clear. I mean, is he a direct threat? Has he said or done anything? Maybe to the Nigerians and to us, yes. But to them there, perhaps no. There was a statement that the Minister for Foreign Affairs, the newly appointed Minister for Foreign Affairs made not too long ago, that we will continue to explore diplomatic, whether we are talking like Simon Ekpa, you're talking like ECOWAS or some of the things that is happening in Africa and sub-Saharan Africa in terms of the coups and what have you. It is not something that is going to be a cut and paste. But then let me come to your side. There can't be any smoke without fire. And so the conspiracy theory rages. Perhaps governments decide that let's continue to do, perhaps, I say that decidedly, let's continue to do a bit of a divide and rule. Not able to speak with one voice. Even when Nnamdi Kanu had openly, I don't know whether that was done in with Doris, that he did not
endorse the sit at home.
Ask Simon Ekpa, and Simon Ekpa could not speak for him, for the IPOB that he rules. And Simon Ekpa could just said, look, as far as you are concerned, the agitation is freedom. We want to free the Ndigbo who still have the Biafra dream, still looming large, Moses will have problems. Absolutely, will have problems. But just a little deal when you were doing your intro. It's very interesting that you made a profound statement that Joe Biden will be going to Israel to see how to douse tension. It's quite significant. Can we see a situation where something similar, like I said, December 15 is very near. The Supreme Court hopefully will be able to give, hopefully, okay, looking at that scenario, to give us an out and compel the government that if you have any reason that we don't know why you should continue to keep Nnamdi Kanu, let us know. I think Prince Lateef Fagbemi, with due respect, the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, already has his work cut out for him. One of the works is to look at all those, including exactly in Kaduna, Zaria, Axis, and then free people that should be freed, and then begin negotiation. Negotiation now is Mr. President now has to get up and be seen to be the father of the nation. Now, will that douse all tension? It's not going to douse all tension, but we begin diplomatically to take it from there. The only thing in my mind that will douse this tension is equity, justice, and fair play to be seen to be done, especially starting from the southeast and the other regions. I'm happy you mentioned Sunday Igboho. In fact, in the Sunday Igboho case, that is the power, I just say, the power of government might. But if your agitation, Moses, listen, if your agitation is based on truth, honesty, equity, fairness, I am not sure, like Hugo says, any force can stop it. I think for the Hugo case and the IPOB and all that, I think it's still a bit sectional, because when IPOB said we want a state of Biafra, and they started drawing a map that goes beyond the core southeast into some other areas, you begin to lose traction from there. Sunday Igboho, Yoruba Nation, Yoruba Nation. So it's Yoruba Nation. And quite a number of Yorubas say, yeah, you may be right, they are killing our people, so-called Fulani headsmen, you are likely to be our Toussaint Louverture, the liberator of Haiti back in the day in history. But wait a minute, we need to make sure that we put some intellectual content into it. And Sunday Igboho said no. I mean, he was not going to do it. He started losing what we call the plot from there. Isaac Adakaboro, going back in history, also had a reason why he had to agitate back in what we call the riverine area. And now, but government came very, very hard on it. And by the time shifting become shoving and then slam on him and
So
treason,
do you think
it became an issue.
the government did not hit hard on IPOB when it started? Is that why it escalated to this point?
What is government's
entity?
position? You do not have any reason to want to separate, but if you choose that you want to separate, you have to do a plebiscite. There are clear-cut ways to go about it. Let's go through the National Assembly, not decapitating people, not bringing judges out of their cars and killing them in cold blood, not getting the memory of Professor Akwili and killing Chike, the husband, the way you killed him.
Okay,
It's clearly
the new
a state
governor,
of anarchy.
New governor Peter Mba of Enugu State started with a mandate to stop the enforcement of the sit-at-home order. And then we heard Nnamdi Kanu also lend his voice to it, saying, look, sit-at-home should end. it should be Empowerment Mondays now. And that played out for a while, and then we saw uh, a return to gunmen brandishing guns, chasing people, destroying properties, and killing people, insisting on a sit-at-home order. But some quarters would say if the government at the center decides to work with the governors in the southeast to ensure that the perpetrators of these illegal sit-at-home, because I mean, every human has the freedom the freedom to move around. If the government at the center decides to work with the governors, they would have nipped this in the bud. Or better still, put an end to it now. But instead, we see a situation whereby the governors don't seem to have the military might to to put a stop to those perpetrating the sit-at-home order. What do you make of that?
I say to you, there is element in war that you can win the war and lose the battle. You can move round the battle and then the war continues to be internecine, never ending. It's a matter of the mind and heart of the people. And you mentioned the Enugu State Governor. I personally give kudos to him. The rest of Nigeria say that we don't know the mind of the average thinking of people staying in that arena. Do they actually want to be liberated? If they want to be liberated because they feel that they are not getting the better part of the stick, by all means. The second that I will say to you is our youths, whether in the southeast and outside of the southeast, have been deprived of the sense of history to know that war is hell. The Muse, Moses, I will remind you that the stick was adopted by federal government long time ago. Remember the Operation Crocodile and what have you, and the voice from the south is saying, look, get these people out of here because they are killing our people. So government has to be very, 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 very careful. No. But I agree with you that there are so many ways to skin a cat. I am aware that the Enugu State Governor and the Anambra State Governor, as examples, and the Imo State Governor, I dare say, have run to the federal that they need their support. Now listen, within the last 2 months, the Nigerian Air Force plane has had to go and decimate hideouts before we saw all those kind of discovery. That is part of the federal mind happening. The Nigerian Army also went there and took a decision that, look, nothing. But at the end of the day, you can win that as what I can call a Pyrrhic victory. But if the mind, the soul, and the thinking of the people is still saying we need to be at the center, we are not out there, and the only way is to continue to agitate, then you know you have a much more serious problem. The only way what you prescribe will happen is by force or declaring a state of emergency. These are still options open, but is it going to work? Will it work? Has it worked in times past? Remember the OD massacre? The Zaki Biam is still there and all that. So I think we are doing cautious optimism now, and I think I am in support of a bit of more of the diplomacy. Let's wait till December 15. If December 15, 2023 now then comes, and this still continues, then we need to sit around the table. We need to sit around the table and say to ourselves, if we want to go, I don't see any reason why
it should be held back.
The federal should hold them back. And allow people that say they want to go. But do it under the normal due process without necessarily calling others, animals, zoo, or decapitating your own. If you understand what I'm trying to say, I, I I am being a bit deliberate. In 2022, in 57, in 40 raids, 40 attacks, 57 souls were killed. That number is still counting. No, I dare say to you, there are ways to agitate. It is not by killing your people and depriving economy of that place the needed oxygen. I haven't said that at the downstream, like I said, at the upstream. The Father Christmas, which is the federal government, now needs to sit back and be a bit much more equitable. What are these people saying? How many states do we have in the Southeast? You want to do it by virtue of population and what have you? Have you done a population census? Do we have a credible population census that now say this is how we are going to be dividing the wealth of the country? Are we going to continue to sit on what the colonial masters put their divide and rule? Can we now then begin to say, if you have to debate on any issue, you will not say some regions have so and so number of states, and some other states, as we have in the Southeast, have lesser number. So they've lost from the onset.
All right.
Finally,
Okay.
what will now happen will be, in my mind, whether IPOB, whether it's Southeast, whether it's the Southwest, whether it's North Central, whether it's not East or South or Northwest, Nigeria must restructure. We have to restructure. We have to get ourselves back into winning ways again. We've had one of the worst after effects elections since February 25. In 4 years' time, it's going to be worse. And the earlier we begin to address those, the better. I have a word for my friends, beautiful friends that I have from the Southeast. I've been in class with them. They have been wonderful human beings. I say sometimes you stoop to conquer. This is going to be your time if we get a bit of a patience. Talk to our OBs, talk to our people, fight for your rights, calmly and gently. The rest of Nigeria, I, for one, will be in support of making sure what belongs fairly and squarely to you should be given to you.
All right, I'll take that as your concluding thoughts on this. And we must say thank you very much. But we do have another topic to touch on before we make it a day on political voice. Now, let's look at the Minister of Women Affairs. Now, Uju Kennedy Ohanenye. She has asked the United Nations to publish monies collected from donors for the benefits of Nigerians in 30 days or risk a legal action by the ministry. Now, the minister stated this in an interview which he granted on Monday. Kennedy Ohanenye claimed that the United Nations had not been transparent in the manner in which they utilized funds they got from donations for Nigeria, all right? And now, the minister gave the UN a 1-month ultimatum, which runs from 16th of October to November 15. She announced that she was working on a pre-action notice to be served on the UN. Oh, well. Interesting times. Now, what do you think the UN and what do you make of, this threat to the United Nations? It's basically a threat of an accusation of fraud.
Moses, I'm as confused. Hopefully you are also confused. Maybe quite a number of Nigerians are confused. I don't understand. Particularly if Mrs. Uju Kennedy, she has her facts and figures wrapped around. Is it the United Nations? Is it an agency of the United Nations that you are looking at? Sorry, I have read a bit of history. I am not aware. I am not aware of something similar to what we want to do. Is this a sabo rattle? Is it trying to distract from the fact that Nigeria, beyond Mrs. Uju Kennedy, is being a cesspit of corruption all around? And then given that kind of ultimatum to take United Nations to court, do you have the energy? Do you have the money? Are you even right under law? Do you have a jurisdiction? Which court are you going to take them to? It's going to be a court in Nigeria that is still battling for its soul. But like I always say, when a child keeps on crying and crying, and I say, keep quiet, child, take this candy, and the child keeps on crying, it means you haven't gotten to the roots, the primary cause of why that child may be crying. I think it's hasty to put a timeline, and I find it a bit odd, I dare say, that the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs that is pushing this, are we still working in silos? Does it have the imprint of Mr. President? I am not sure she will just go on her own and do a press statement and begin to talk about taking to court. Do you have your facts?
What is the procedure?
Do you have your facts and figures?
What is the procedure of things when the UN collects monies from
the UN does, okay, well, common sense now. The UN will not collect money. An agency of the UN, depending on humanitarian affairs, women affairs, UNICEF, or whatever it is, and you believe they have collected money on behalf of your people. And then these agencies have offices here in Nigeria. Have you approached those offices? Have you gone to show them the facts? What did they say? You see, like I always say, there is due process in everything. The wheel of justice grinds slowly, no doubt, but it grinds exceedingly well. There is no need for grandstanding. If you have done that, you start from here in Nigeria. They are under your jurisdiction here in Nigeria. If they have not done well, then you... Why do you think that when nations have disagreements, and then you call the ambassador, give instruction, this is not in alignment with our normal ethos, can you do something about it? Worst case scenario, see what happened in Niger. France, please leave. Nigeria, please leave. So those steps needs to be taken. It's going to be very difficult for me, Moses, to just nebulously now be interrogating what the minister has, what she has found, what she knows she should put through the normal due process, what she should also know that today may be for you, for whatever reason. You need the United Nations to help in quite a number of other areas. So that's not the time you now go to your father who is paying your school fees, or he's been a father figure to you, and then you begin to poke your nose, your hand in his eyes. It should be done well, it should be done properly, so that you don't look foolish at the end of the day.
Now, let's just say maybe the minister is just trying to decipher what she was trying to say. Maybe she was calling on the UN to address the agencies in charge, and not her taking the UN as a body to court, because as you rightly said, there are agencies in charge of different things. So if anyone is going to collect donors from, connect donations, it would be, the agencies in charge.
And the NGOs.
And the NGOs.
Having Nigerians, you see.
No, so are you now saying that there is a possibility that because Nigerians are involved, that's why there is
Nigerians will be involved.
Corruption in this?
Hey, come on. And by the way, putting history straight, at one point in time, the stars that have represented Nigeria in sports, track and field, for years, for decades, were sponsored by the company I used to work for that is called ExxonMobil. Hear about Mobil track and field, the Chidimos of this world, the Onyalis of this world, and all that. Mohamed Ali, Olapade, they came from the kind of sponsorship from private funds to Nigeria. Under my eyes, they started giving warnings that they are no more going to do it because when those monies come to Nigeria and go to Nigeria Sports Commission, the thing just disappears like smoke. And out of patriotism, say no, whatever it is, they now they showed it to us. At the end of the day, Nigerians killed the idea because a few people were corrupt and they were going to continue to now bring the whole of Nigeria down. Likewise this. I find it a bit odd that a minister will say he wants to take United Nations to court. By the time United Nations now open their can of worms, you see that perhaps
that is probably what we need.
You are going to be digging a hole under your feet.
If that be the case, isn't that what we need for those that have been corrupt to be exposed?
That we need. There are ways and means of doing that. Corruption is being exposed at CBN as we speak. You
So
will
what
not know
are the
a lot of
ways?
things that is happening there.
So what
It
are
is
the
not
ways?
by
Taking the UN to
United
court.
Nations to court. In other words, what you are saying is that your own means and methods of resolving this issue, you don't have the trust or the capacity that you can do it. And so go and call on the big giants to come and help you resolve. United Nations will be coming to resolve your issue when Gaza is there, when the ECOWAS Wahala in Niger is there, where Ukraine. So you will now be saying it is the Nigerian issue that we are going to be resolving. Look, I am not in any way trying to play it down. Moses, you are right. If your house is leaking, the first port of call to do anything about that house is you. Even though you may say you don't have all the expertise, but you have to make the whistle blow. There are processes that need to be handled. I haven't seen that. Maybe it's been done. Maybe government now then decided haven't done all what we need to do. The next thing that we need to be talking about when we have the IOPOB, we have the farmer headers crisis, we have inflation galloping, we have our own security issues now to be asking that we are going to take United Nations to court. Sorry, on the face value, it's looking like something, or maybe I should just hold my breath. It's looking like something that I don't think I understand.
Okay, don't hold your breath. Do not hold your breath. Now, what are the measures that you think the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs can take to address this allegation of corruption against the UN and its agencies?
Mrs. Uju Kennedy, she's a new
Minister. She's
player.
So you think that this is
block.
just excitement?
I think she has her onions. I have no reason why I should doubt her enthusiasm. But I think what she needs to do is, first of all, to let Nigerians know. It's still a bit nebulous. Don't make it this opaque. Let's know, what exactly do you have? Or are you just saborato? Do you have your facts and figures? Which are the United Nations agencies that have collected money from Nigeria? And I said, this has been going on from Imo River. Is that what you call it? From time immemorial. It's been going on with the active connivance of Nigerian matadors. Do you have your own bits? Let us know who. So, if I am the Nigerian matador acting for Moses, who is in the US, okay, you catch me first. Then when you catch me, it's going to be extended, and then it keeps on. Uh, when Atiku Abubakar's wife had an issue and whatever, the U.S. courts the Atiku wife and the collaborators there, and they asked us to do our own, and then we went to sleep until we now woke up to now then say the Atiku should now be president of Nigeria. You know, my point is that what the minister needs to do, let us first of all understand. Don't let us just do headwinds and then just wave the winds. It gives the impression that you may want to distract attention. And if it is real, I think if it's been discussed at the FCC meeting, if she's been given the mandate, I also believe that we have a Minister of Information and Strategy in Nigeria. I expect that is how it should be. But for her to wake up and do what she needs to do, I don't understand. And I can't continue to comment on what I don't think I understand. And as I always say, Muse Moses, all this perhaps will just end up as the usual distraction. You now get one or two people and stuff like that. And some of these people just smile to the banks. Let's do things with process. Let's do things with focus. Let's do it. You cannot be asking that you are going to take United Nations to court and giving them 15 days without the fact that I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. You are going to take United Nations to court.
Maybe they have facts in front of them. Probably.
Is it at the international court? Or is it Nigeria, the local court? Honestly speaking, you don't need to be a SAN to have some measure of common sense to be able to now look at it. What exactly is it that we are talking about? Let's clarify it. You are taking United Nations to court. Who asked for the funds in the first place? Who started the process of asking for funds in Nigeria? Do you know them? Did they have their eyes open? Got the funds accounted for in jurisdictions, and the funds did not get to Nigeria? Why? Yes, Nigerians are corrupt. There are other corrupt people outside the shores of Nigeria. There's no doubt about that. And name them. Maybe she's putting it under wraps. That maybe when they get to court, I want to know which court we are going to. I want to say to you, Moses, not just because of Mrs. Uju Kennedy. I want to say my advice to this present government is, please, let's step back a little. Let us not just be making statements that we know will not be able to implement. Don't let us continue to act before we think of fallouts. Otherwise, we may be losing more than the credibility that is expected of us as a nation.
All right, thank you very much, Akin Fatunke, who is a chartered accountant and communications consultant, communications expert, and also public affairs commentator. We do appreciate you for your time and your views. All right, that's a wrap. This is where we drop anchor on Political Voice today. On behalf of the team, I am Moses Humphrey, wishing you a beautiful day. Bye for now.